What's up, everybody? Another primetime showdown slate right here. Sunday Night Football. Chiefs and Bills, two high-powered offenses here. I'm Justin Carlucci with Keith Eister and producer Devin working the boards. What's going on, Keith?
Not much, man. Lots of chalk hitting today. I thought coming out of the noon games or 1 p.m. Eastern games, I was set up to have a pretty big day. I had a ton of Adams, ton of Madison. But I faded most of the Giants, which on the Barkley, I actually had a lot of Barkley, faded the Giants passing game. So Kadarius Toney kind of stuck it to me. Mike Williams went off, but I don't know, profitable slate, but I thought it was going to be a much better one.
Yeah, I feel you. Alexander Madison chalk opened up before lock, and like I said, pouring out for the Dalvin Cook owners so far and the young season longers out there. Just guy can't stay on the field. But anyway, it's time to make up for it. Sunday Night Football showdown, prolific matchup here. Like, these are the two teams you want to see on primetime, right? I live in Philly, and I'm sick of seeing the Eagles on local cable. So good to see a couple of popular teams, good teams going at it tonight. High team totals, 29.5 projected team total for the Chiefs, 27 for the Buffalo Bills. So a general synopsis of this game, Keith. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think offense, right? Had a little bit of weather concern this morning. Reading Roth's most recent update, it sounds like the rain is pretty much going to stay away. I'm generally not concerned about rain anyway, and winds always look to be holding below the threshold where we care about them. So as far as I'm concerned, all clear from a weather standpoint, and blast off to the offenses. So should be a fun one.
Yeah, there are a lot of times where we want the offense. We're building for the shootouts, but I'm more confident than most showdown slates that we're going to get some kind of offensive production out of both teams tonight. So the Chiefs have just struggled defensively all season. I don't know if there's any indication why they would suddenly improve against one of the team's better offenses tonight. They are at home, and that's why they're a slate favorite. Totally get it. Man, two of the best quarterbacks in the league too. And DraftKings and FanDuel both price things accordingly, I would say. Two teams where the volume is fairly condensed. Obviously, Tyreek and Travis Kelce hog up a lot of the air yard market share, a lot of the targets. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is finally relevant again. And of course, the shiny new toy, Josh Gordon. Let me talk about that first. I know we're going to get some kind of questions sooner or later. And we just want to pick your brain before we go any further. How much do you think Josh Gordon will be involved in this Andy Reid offense?
My initial lean is not very much, but honestly, I don't know. He's active. They signed him for a reason, right? And the price tag is really attractive. Ownership numbers currently look really low. And if that's reality, I'd be more than happy to take a couple of shots on him. So I guess it kind of just got to feel it out here in the minutes before lock on where we think the market sentiment is on him and whether he's going to get played or not. Because if he's low owned, I have a lot of interest. If he's going to be 25, 30%, I'd rather fade him and play some other secondary Chiefs pass catchers. But how do you feel about his ownership?
Well, man, it's a tough one. Let's see what we have in lineup HQ while we're talking about it here. If my Google Chrome ever cooperates with me. Let's see. We have Josh Gordon at sub 5% here on DK.
I think he comes in a little higher. It'll be over than that.
Yeah.
But does he get to like 20% is my concern.
I don't think so. My best guess is no. Right. I'm thinking I could see 10 to 15 tops. That's kind of getting towards the danger area for GPP fades, right? But he is also so cheap, right? If he has 3 targets and catches 2 balls for 50 yards, he's probably good on this slate. So that's the other thing. His price is more than fair. Man, all the reports are he's in the best shape of his life, etc.
Of course, yeah.
Whatever you want to believe what the media is up to you. But I don't see him coming in 20%. But I'm going to trust our ownership projections for the most part. I think maybe it's slightly higher, but I don't see 20% here. I know we're going to get a question later. Josh Gordon, captain ? So what are your thoughts on that? And we'll get that out of the way.
Yeah, I don't think he has the role for that. I think he's going to. So last Sunday night, we talked a lot about Enkilari, who was coming back off IR, and we didn't know what his role was. And he got kind of the run that we were expecting. I don't know what his exact snap count was, but it was like 15 to 20 snaps and didn't do anything to really, really hurt you. So that's kind of the role I see for Gordon. I could see him as a useful valued piece in the flex, but I don't think that he has a big enough role to pay off in the captain.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's get some promo stuff out of the way before we keep going here. BetMGM, use the promo code GRINDERSBET. Bet $10 to get $200 instantly on BetMGM if your team scores a touchdown. Check out RotoGrinders Premium, guys. If you're not rolling with us by now, you're missing out on a lot of good tools, shows, etc., information, ownership projections. The Blitz is extremely popular and successful. Want to check out RG Premium. Like and subscribe to RotoGrinders, and of course, also subscribe to our RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football podcast. And love pumping out all this content. We have a great team. And especially producer Devin is very busy, especially on Sundays. So another shout out to Devin. We'll bring him on towards the end of the show to get a hot take or two. And hopefully he crushed some of those Derrick Henry multi-touchdown parlays today. So curious to see how he did. Anyway, let's take a look at the quarterbacks, similar pricing here, similar projections. Mahomes coming in, projected to be a tick under, 8 to 10% lower than Josh Allen. I guess that's maybe as expected. Running backs, obviously, I think this is where obviously if Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the most expensive back in this game, but I think this is where a conversation could get really interesting, and we'll get to that momentarily here. So let's backpedal here, and we'll get into some position guys as we talk about builds in general. Are you prone to more do a balanced type of build? Vegas has it as a competitive, high-scoring game. So where is the leverage build tonight, Keith? And kind of when you kept making your builds, where did you land the most?
Yeah, so I was just trying to refresh it, but it looks like our Slate IQ was having some trouble with the graphics. But I believe from reading the 2-4, so 2 winning players and 4 losing players was the most leveraged build. Which makes sense, right? If one team gets ahead, maybe they slow it down and try to take some time off the clock, and the other team goes completely pass happy and spreads it around a lot, and you get there through the receptions on DraftKings. So I like the 2-4 build quite a bit. Part of what I'm running into is I don't have a strong lean for who wins this game. I think it's going to be an awesome game, and I could see it going completely either way. So I'm building both with 2 Bills, 4 Chiefs, and 2 Chiefs, 4 Bills. I think both of those are completely viable, and I like both of the builds just about equally. So,
yeah, that's fair. I'm landing on some 2 4s. I don't mind the 3 3s. I don't know how I feel about 4 2. But also some of the punt plays, like we've had value on slates recently, like really cheap value where there was some serious upside there, right? It was a bit of boom or bust stuff, but I don't mind some of these value pieces tonight, but I don't know what the upside is. Like Jody Fortson catches a touchdown every other week, it seems like, but what's his upside? I was kind of wishing that price tag was 3 digits and not 1,400, right? If he was like 800 or something or 600, because all of these stud players in the condensed volume rolls, both sites did a really nice job of pricing them up a little more aggressively on DraftKings than FanDuel, but you know I just don't know if tonight's the night where you could win with a 0 in your lineup. We've seen it before in the past, every now and then. I just don't think that's the route I'm going. Even Dawson Knox is super involved, right? Dawson Knox was the value piece on this Bills team for single game slates last year, but now he's actually involved in the offense. He's not just a red zone type of 15-yard, 12-yard look kind of guy. He's consistently playing. He played under 60% of the snaps in week 1, but after that, 83% week 2, 78% week 3, and 81% week 4. So that value is gone. Isaiah McKenzie, he was the gadget guy, one of these slate breakers for showdowns, and he just really isn't running a ton of routes. He only played 4 snaps in general last week. However, these are the kind of games where I think you pull out some more of those rabbits out of your magic hat than maybe usual. So I don't mind like large field darts at a guy like Isaiah McKenzie. But in terms of value, Gabriel Davis is seeing the most snaps. Of course, the arrival of Emmanuel Sanders has really putting a damper on his production. I mean, he was a real producer last year. But in terms of value, and I'll get your take soon, if I'm looking for a punt, if I'm playing some large field stuff, I do like Gabriel Davis the most. And the game log's not going to be pretty, but he's on the field, between 25 and 40-ish% of the snaps, slightly more. Just we haven't really had the results. But if this is really going to be a shootout type of game, I don't mind some shares of Gabriel Davis. Where are you going for value tonight, Keith?
Yeah, Gabriel Davis is the guy I have my eye on. He's been a little bit banged up too in the first couple of weeks of the year. He caught a touchdown week 1, but then he was dealing with that injury. I can't remember exactly what it was right now, but he's received end zone targets even after that touchdown too. Now maybe Dawson Knox kind of elevating his game has cut into that a little bit. So it's a little bit more of a long shot than it was last year. But I do still think like Davis is going to be out there, and it seems like Allen just has eyes for him in the red zone. And that's all I'm looking for out of these cheap guys is the touchdown. So give me one catch for a touchdown from Gabe Davis, and I think that's enough to, I don't know, something to work with at least.
But we'll stick with the receivers since that's where our conversation brought us, and then we'll go backwards to running back. So these Chiefs receivers, Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, it's always a pleasure to figure out which one of them will have the game between the two on these single game slates, if either of them. Demarcus Robinson shows up when everyone's on Mecole Hardman, it seems like, and vice versa. But now we're throwing Josh Gordon into the mix too, and it's kind of ironic that maybe Andy Reid felt like he wasn't getting that consistent production out of anybody else other than Tyreek or Kelsey as well. And you know what? Games like tonight, where I'm not saying it'll happen tonight because Josh Gordon is brand new to the team, but when you're playing a stout run defense and maybe the Bills try to take away one of the top 2 Chiefs targets, like maybe that's when the Josh Gordon type of caliber player, if he stays on the field, I mean, I feel like I've seen this movie before, is needed for this offense. So he'd be a huge boost if he actually has it together. But talk to me about some of these receivers tonight. Obviously, Diggs, has he scored yet this year? It's been a while, right? I mean, he's getting the targets, 10 targets, 8 targets, 14 targets. He has 1 touchdown this year. Like, that is nothing to sneeze about. Cole Beasley, I like Beasley a lot tonight too, right? 13 targets week 1, 4 targets. That was just a lopsided blowout against Miami. Washington, 13 targets. And then again, another lopsided 40-point game against Houston, basically. So I'm like Beasley, I'm willing to kind of toss these two game scripted out kind of games out, right? Like I'm okay with the inconsistency here. And then of course Emmanuel Sanders, who has proven to be extremely useful. He looks good. And the volume might not be at the Beasley Diggs level, but he's been efficient, and Allen's been efficient throwing the ball to him. So that being said, where do you go, with these Bills receivers? Obviously, we can rank them in terms of pecking order and talent. And I know wide receiver one in the premium article has shown to give us some historic leverage, but I just feel like on a night like tonight where there shouldn't be a lot of defense, there's volume going around. Who's to say who the wide receiver one's actually going to be? Obviously, on paper, Stephon Diggs. But with the volume Beasley should see, and even Emmanuel Sanders being really good, it's tough tonight, man. So talk to me about these Bills receivers.
Yeah, tons of great talent here. They throw the ball a ton too, so there's plenty of volume to go around. The way I'm looking at it is I want to play Stephon Diggs in the captain if I'm playing him, because he's the one that can just absolutely go nuclear. So he's probably my favorite captain on the slate, even over Tyreek or Kelsey or either of the quarterbacks. So I absolutely love Stephon Diggs. I think this is the defense that he just can really break out against. He's had some good games. The production has been there, like you mentioned, the targets. But he hasn't exploded yet. I think this could be the night for Stephon Diggs. So he's the guy I want in the captain more than anybody. And then it depends on the salary that you're working with and what you want to do on the other side, really, for these other guys. I like Beasley. I like playing him when I'm building for a Chiefs win, like in a trailing game script, because I think that's when the volume can really tick up. And Beasley can be used as the slot guy that's catching a lot of the short intermediate stuff that they're using to move the ball down the field without chewing up much clock. So when I'm using Beasley, I think I'm building for a Chiefs win in that type of a build. Talked about the Gabe Davis value. I think you can play him in any script, and he is the guy I'm looking to the most when I'm looking to save some money. So that kind of leaves Manny Sanders as the guy that's getting squeezed a little bit for me. It's not that I don't like him, but if I'm playing a ton of Diggs, I just have a hard time seeing both Diggs and Sanders get there at their price tags. So I'm a little bit under the field on Sanders, and it's not, like I said, it's not a knock on his talent or anything. He's just kind of the guy that got squeezed with wanting plenty of exposure to Diggs and then playing the other two also.
So it also looks like there's no Travarius Ward for Kansas City tonight too. So is that a leg up for Diggs as well? And on the flip side, I know we're looking at individual defensive players, and some people have their takes on whether they matter or not. But it looks like Matt Milano on the Buffalo side is also out, and he's one of their better, arguably their best all around linebacker. But so there's some dinged up guys, and looks like Chris Jones is out too for Kansas City. I'm looking at Matt McMullen's Chiefs beat Raider Twitter here. Noah Gray's out too. So, man, is it Jody Fortson season again? Is that going to be another thing?
I mean, he's the one that seems to find the end zone here recently. So
it's like your modern day Mercedes Lewis again, right?
It's exactly right. Yeah,
for 6 yards and a touchdown or something. Anyway, yeah, I have real similar thoughts here. You can build with Beasley and Sanders at captain comfortably, but you really need to hope that there's no insane ceiling game from anybody else, and that the gap between points per dollar kind of works itself out. So I totally understand. I think there's a chance, and either one of these three Buffalo receivers could be the optimal captain. You're getting a lot of savings with playing Sanders or Beasley opposed to Diggs. But I totally agree. Love the matchup for Diggs. The volume's been there all year. The touchdown equity hasn't, but that's just how it's shaken out. But I think Diggs is in line for a great role tonight too. We haven't spent a lot of time on Tyreek or Kelsey. Do you have a lean either or tonight with how it's going to shake out?
Yeah, I mean, it's always so tough to pick between these guys, and you think one guy is going to do it one game and then it's the other guy and vice versa. So for Showdown, what I always rely on is Tyreek Hill has a higher ceiling. So he is the guy I lean to in Showdown, especially because Kelsey's biggest attribute is his position eligibility, which is completely negated in Showdown. They both play flex or they both play captain. Wide receiver, tight end doesn't matter. So for that reason, every time the Chiefs are on a showdown, I always find myself with more Tyreek Hill. And it's because you don't have the benefit of Kelsey just blowing away his position by like 20 points or whatever, right? It's a lot more difficult for him to separate on a Stephon Diggs or a Tyreek Hill than it is on whatever the next 5K tight end is that he's going or trying to beat. So for that reason and that reason alone, like it's not a football take or anything like that. It's just Tyreek has more upside for me. That's the guy I want more exposure to.
We know he had 2 crazy games this year. Obviously, you're looking at his game log here: 37, 5, 10, 47. It's just absolutely insane. The ceiling's there for sure. The volume is typically there. But the behind the scenes metrics or whatever you want to call it, or even just more not funny to look at, but like Tyreek Hill has dominated the air yard market share. 44% of the team's air yard market share, opposed to Kelsey's 20. But week 1 in his blowout game, he had 72% of the air yards. Week 2, he had 6%. It's like, okay, there was an anomaly. Week 3 he had 26%, and it was more of a Kelsey game. And then week 4 he had 74% of the air yard market share. Again, he's been all or nothing, and it's based upon, Mahomes has really been doing a much better job of taking what these defenses have given him. We've seen Demarcus Robinson get involved and Hardman in the Ravens game when Tyreek was, kind of not taken out of the game, but Baltimore did a good job. So he's doing a better job of not forcing the ball. And in the past, like people still hadn't had a chance to figure him out. So he was able to do it. He was able to kind of force the ball. And there are still times where he can force the ball to Tyreek Hill because he's just that damn good. But I think I agree with you there, right? Most of the Kelsey leverage is a lineup build thing, or position eligibility thing. So I'm with you on there too. So I don't know how this I've been trying to dig and find any clues, but I don't know how this Josh Gordon thing is going to shake out in regard to Hardman or Demarcus Robinson. But it kind of seems like Gordon's arrival and his active status has given all 3 of those receivers a hit in terms of their projected ownership. So they might all come in kind of low. And those are the kind of guys that no one ever wants to throw in their lineup, but they always end up optimal, right? Like Demarcus Robinson, or Hardman hasn't done it this year yet, but it just seems like one of those games where it could be one of the 3. So
yeah, so I have actually a pretty strong lean to Hardman of that group. I think Hardman has a role in this offense, regardless of how much Josh Gordon is out there. You'll see him get like the random end around, or they'll dial up the screen pass to him. He can get some of those like gadgety design plays for him. I don't think those go away, even if Gordon gets, 50% of the snaps or something crazy like that right away. So I still have interest in Hardman, regardless of Josh Gordon being on the roster.
Okay. Yeah. The volume isn't super crazy, but you're right. He is utilized in other roles. And, we've seen Deebo Samuel have a rushing touchdown today. And, we play guys like Robert Woods because they're gadgety, like we talked about on the some previous shows. And Robert Woods finally had his game.
And he
finally
went off Thursday. Yep.
Yeah. What a game. So, yeah, I like that call too. Byron Pringle, another one of these guys that nobody ever wants to play, but it seems like every now and then, 2 for 63 and a touchdown in week 2. I mean, he could have that game, but we'll see how it shakes out. So let's do a build or 2, and then we'll get into some questions here. So let's do one Buffalo build, and then we'll do a Chiefs kind of oriented build. I know you mentioned Stephon Diggs. I can't argue with anything you said there. So let's throw Diggs in at captain here. For anybody joining late, you just want to reiterate why, some reasons why you like Diggs so much tonight, Keith?
He's a true number 1 alpha wide receiver, right? And we've been seeing the target volume all year. He's been in double-digit targets 3 of the 4 games, I think it was. We're just waiting on a little bit of touchdown variance and for him to kind of pop off on some of those yardage games. Like he's fallen just short of the 100-yard bonus, and just hasn't had that big explosion game. But we've seen it so many times before from Diggs. Kansas City has really struggled on defense, and I think that this is the game that they need him to produce like that so that they can keep up with the Kansas City offense. So Diggs is my guy tonight. For those
reasons. The DFS community and in general, we live in such a "what have you done for me recently" type of world, and people are going to see that game log and no more than 20 points anywhere, but the volume's there, and the matchup's there tonight, so I like it. So are you thinking 2-4 build? Do we pair him with Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think I want Josh Allen in any build with him, just because Allen Even if he throws all the touchdowns to Diggs, he could still run one in two. Like Josh Allen can just get it done so many ways. So if I'm playing for the Bills to put up a lot of points, which I am with a Diggs captain, I want Allen in it too.
Okay. Is there? It's tough, man. But you're basically in most situations going to pick one of these quarterbacks in your lineup. So are you going to correlate that with your captain, or is there any realm where you're able to stick two in there?
Yeah, I mean that's why we're talking about like the Gabriel Davis and the Josh Gordon. That's why they make so much sense as dart throws, is because they allow you to fit both quarterbacks with one of the elite pass catchers. That's how I built the majority of my lineups, just because I don't mind taking shots on values that might give me zeros. So if we throw Mahomes in there, what's that? It gives us 4K left per. I think that's doable.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And you know what? Should we run some Gabriel Davis on with this team and talk from there? Is that your lean for value?
Yep, I think both of us agreed that he was the top guy that might have a little bit of hidden upside in there with the touchdown equity.
Now that doesn't give you a 2-4 though. Are you okay with that?
I am, yeah. So this is what I'm torn about is, can you build this team with the Chiefs winning, which I guess it's tough for Diggs to be captain if the Chiefs are winning, because unless Mahomes just spreads it around a lot, and like Tyreek and Kelsey both have good games but not great games, and Diggs is the one that goes for 150 and 2. I mean, that's kind of what you have to be thinking in something like this. I don't know. Mahomes spreads it around, and the Bills are really condensed on Allen and Diggs.
It's an outcome. I mean, if it's a field goal game, Vegas thinks it's going to be 2.5 point. It's an outcome. I mean, pretty much with all the upside of these three Buffalo pass catchers, and the Chiefs' main threats, it's definitely possible. And we didn't even talk running backs. So we're going to do this build. And before we do our Chiefs build, we're going to talk running backs. So anyway, just to complete this build, I guess we'll put Davis in here, and that gives you what per position. I have my widgets in my way here. About 5,700 per position. So, what are your next thoughts from here? Like, are you willing to go Josh Gordon? Like, how warm or cold are you on Josh Gordon today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have more than like 20% of him, so it's not something that I did on the majority of my lineups or anything like that. But I do have, I mean, plenty of sprinkles on him. I don't know if I love it with Gordon and Davis. Mm-hmm. Like, they're on separate teams, so it's certainly not like out of the realm of possibilities. It's in the range of outcomes, right? That they both could catch the touchdown. I don't know. I think if we get Hardman in there, that leaves us 68. I mean, that's enough to work with, I think. So Hardman, I think he has just a more defined role. Like I said, even if Gordon sees the field, I still think Hardman is out there for the majority of the snaps. Like, his role is not going away. And I think Hardman's going to be underutilized because of the presence of Gordon, and people are going to be afraid that he's going to take over for Hardman. And that's not how I'm viewing the situation.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of salary to work with, a lot of different ways you can go in that type of build. I do think running backs get interesting here. And I think you can just get contrarian by using some of these running backs here, right? Everybody wants it to be the air it out show, which is fine. But Buffalo's quietly been pretty productive running the ball. I know they've had some favorable game scripts towards the run, but like Zach Moss has been decent. I'm curious to see the approach they're going to take, because you can run on Kansas City too. Zach Moss has been decent. He's even been catching the ball out of the backfield a little bit. But it was Devin Singletary. He might see some more of this pass work if maybe the Bills are trailing in the first half. So I just think these running backs are such a key chess piece on this slate, where we just took up 2/3 of the show talking about pass catchers. Right. So that kind of speaks for itself. And look at this ownership, sub 20% for Devin Singletary, who is getting a good amount of opportunities here, right? Like double-digit carries, not a ton of passing work, but I think in the right game, and it could be tonight. I think we could be looking at that. Pittsburgh was a pretty neutral game script. Well, I mean, it wasn't like a total wash. 5 targets. If he gets 3 to 5 targets, I'm okay with that. So I think these running backs, of course, no one wants to play them, but they're very fairly priced too. 66 for Zach Moss, 52 for Devin Singletary. Edwards-Helaire is just, man, this Buffalo run D is so good. But of course, he has receiving touchdowns in each of his last 2 games, and on a 1-game slate, that's the kind of stuff that drives you nuts with trying to figure that stuff out too. So I think all the running backs in this game are going to go completely overlooked. What are your thoughts here? You have much exposure to anybody specifically?
So I have a hard time with Edwards-Helaire and Moss. Just they're a little bit more expensive, especially CEH. Like I can't pay that price for him I just see this game being so pass heavy. Could it burn me and he's the one that scores the touchdowns? Yeah, of course it is. Of course that could happen. But that's just the script that I'm going to play for and just hope that CEH doesn't find the end zone. So I'm pretty much full fading CEH. The Bills side is interesting, but I wish it wasn't such a defined split. And it's like last year, it seemed like Singletary had more of the passing role and they'd use Moss on the goal line, and Moss usually got the early down work. This year, it's a little bit more up in the air. I think Singletary is the more talented pass catcher of the two, and he's a little bit cheaper. For those 2 reasons, I have a strong lean to Singletary. Moss obviously has more touchdown equity, and that could burn me there as well. But I'm just hoping that either Allen runs them in or he throws them. And so I'm looking at Singletary for some pass down work and pretty much fading Moss. That's my take on it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just kind of how I'm viewing it.
Well, I'll let you know in like 3 hours if it's right or wrong.
Right.
but I think there's gonna, when that ball's inside the 5, there's gonna be a lot of people screaming either for Josh Allen to run it in or not, or vulturing Zach Moss or vice versa. It's just Allen's threat inside the 5 is just obviously makes things a little more complicated. But just in terms of pure ownership on some of these large field contests, I'll have some exposure to these running backs because there's a lot of unknown there and some uncertainty, and there seems to be condensed volume at the pass catching position. So I'm okay with taking a crack at some of these running backs here. All right, so let's do a Kansas City build here. Let me get rid of some of these Bills, and then we will take some questions from the chat. Thanks for sticking with us here. If you're just joining us, talking about the Kansas City pass catchers earlier, and we agree that Tyreek Hill's ceiling is just much higher. I'm with you on that. Could it be more of a plot down the field game, when Kelsey does this thing? I guess it could be, but I'm playing the ceiling with you. So let's play Tyreek at captain here, and we'll work from there. So Tyreek Hill, we have him projected at just about 15% ownership. I'm with you on there. So we're going to put Mahomes with him because it's just what you do. You stack the quarterback with the wide receiver. So where would you go from here for a Tyreek Hill build, Keith?
Yeah. So one of the nice things about playing Diggs is he is like significantly cheaper than Hill. Salary gets tight in a hurry if you try to play both quarterbacks with Tyreek, right? So looking at 3,300 basically for the rest of the 3 positions if you throw Allen in there. We've talked about enough pieces where it's viable, and I certainly am playing both quarterbacks on most of my lineups. I just think Allen there's almost no way he doesn't put up like 25 points in the spot, right?
I would think so. Look at the defense, look at his passing props, etc. It's I would say 25 is a fair, I don't want to say floor, but it almost probably it's close.
Yeah. So, on most of mine, I have both quarterbacks. So I think that's the route that we take it.
Could we get a agreement on a dart throw is just Gabe Davis tonight? I think it could be
totally.
All right. Let's play Gabe Davis in here. That helps us out. He's on the field. Like you said, he's been dinged up. There should be as much as I'm saying the running backs are a great contrarian look, it might not work out that way, right? There's a chance, but Gabe Davis should be out there. And like you said, at that price, 1K flat, he needs 20 yards, a touchdown, and 2 catches. So I'm with you. So that opens some things up, and that is a good salary saver. So there's a good core to work with. So give me one more player, which would leave you a little bit of flexibility too, Keith.
All right. So if we're doing the 2-4 build with Hill and Mahomes scoring most of the Chiefs' points and them leading the game, I like Singletary in the trailing script. 3,800 is what that leaves us with. If we put him in there, we're just short of the kickers. So we probably need to look up to punt again. That's going to put us in like the Josh Gordon range. Demarcus Robinson would fit there, but that's a little bit tough. Maybe you go Hardman there instead to free up a little bit of salary instead of Singletary. And then you don't have to punt twice, like full on punt. Like Josh Gordon is fine, but he literally might not see the field, right? So you got to assess your risk on that, and how much you're okay with taking a 0 on 1.8K in salary. But
agreed. Risk management tonight, folks.
That's right.
Yeah, the kickers again. Everybody wants to be a touchdown game, but when you have two teams that pass as much as they do typically, and this thing could just get past Happy in a hurry. It's possible that the clock's going to be stopping at least on the incompletion, so it's not going to be like a Derrick Henry Titans game where it's the end of the first quarter at 1:08 p.m. Eastern. Trust me, I watch a lot of it. It's not always fun, but if the ball's going to be moving and maybe all the drives aren't finished, it's possible the kickers are just in no man's land for A, these game script builds, and B, when you make a lineup like we talked about with Singletary instead of Hardman here at this second to last spot, you're just shy of this kicker range. And of course, they're both coming in sub 20% here. And Tyler Bass, I mean, the Bills are moving the ball, and look at a lot of extra points, but I mean, he's kicking. I don't know why this says 4 fantasy points here, but look, 4 field goals, 3 field goals, nothing against Miami, 3 against Pittsburgh. Like he's getting opportunities. I understand we want the touchdown equity, but as long as the ball's gonna be moving on both sides, I think there's a chance one of these kickers goes for 12 to 15 points. Of course, ceiling here is 11 on HQ here. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's possible. I mean, as long as the ball's moving, I'm almost more interested in these kickers that they're gonna have the opportunity to at least be in field goal range for most of the game. I know it's not sexy or anything like that, but do you have any interest in playing some kickers today in larger field stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we both expect a ton of points to be put up, and all you need is for a failed third down on the 30-yard line, and I mean that's 4 or 5 points right there, right? I think they're totally in play. The savings is useful to help you get more exposure to some of the elite guys. I think you have to run some of it out there. I don't think it's going to be like a 4 field goal game from one of them, but I think each of them probably kicks at least one, and they should have plenty of extra points. So they're going to put some points on the board. And it just depends on how the scoring at the top of the range works out as to whether that's enough in the build, or whether, I mean, it's somebody like if Tyreek goes off, then these value plays have to be useful. Or if it's Kelsey or Diggs or any of the elite guys end up as the optimal captain, then these value plays are going to be in the optimal lineup.
And just for argument's sake, both of these kickers project better than Demarcus Robinson, Josh Gordon, our guy Gabe Davis, Byron Pringle. So there's some warrant behind that argument, and to play some kickers today. So I like it. So 8:08 Eastern, we got about a dozen minutes left here. Let's go to the chat. And while I am scrolling up in the chat, let me bring Devin on quick. Let me hear about some of these Derrick Henry, Henry action you were talking about taking earlier today. How did that work out for you? What did you put in?
Let me tell you, I had 2 TDs or more for Derrick Henry, 119 over rushing yards, 1 interception by Trey Lawrence, and over 35 pass attempts with a Marvin Jones Jr. anytime touchdown. That was the only one out of the 5-leg parlay that didn't hit, and it was literally the last throw of the game that Lawrence got the touchdown. Oh, I was tilting.
Yeah, I had too much Marvin Jones. He was the ADOT guy so far.
It seemed sharp.
This year.
It seemed sharp.
But man, that stinks.
I'll be doing that every week from now on, though. I'm gonna put a prop bet, multiple TDs for Derrick Henry, and I'm just gonna feel good about my lineups going into the slate. Either way.
I like it. Hey boys, do we have any weather update? Let me bring up. Do we have anything from Roth? What's the latest here? Had some looking rainy questions to open up the chat here, so I just want to see if we have anything from Roth. While I'm looking that up, let's see what else we got in the chat here. Okay, here's a good one. Let's touch on some FanDuel. Best contrarian MVP, FanDuel GPP, large field. Well, I think you can get some because we know it's raw points on FanDuel, unless you're new to playing Showdown, the salaries don't change. But I kind of opened the show with saying the volume should be there for all these pass catchers on Buffalo. Dare I say one of them have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns? I mean, we saw Sanders do it a couple weeks ago. Cole Beasley was the poster child of doing that every once in a while last season. So, if you want to get a little bit riskier, risk management, some dart throws and larger field stuff, I mean, I could bring it up on HQ for FanDuel, but I checked about an hour ago, and the MVP projected ownership for Sanders and Cole Beasley were both like, sub 5 or 6% or something like that. So contrarian captain on FanDuel, Keith. Talk to me here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, on FanDuel, I mean, I would consider anything outside of the 2 quarterbacks, Diggs, Hill, and Kelsey, as like really contrarian. I mean, with as much as the quarterbacks are going to be played in the MVP, and rightfully so on FanDuel, it's just really hard for somebody else to outscore a quarterback on FanDuel. I mean, I think Kelsey might even end up contrarian. I don't know if I'm going further off the board than that. I agree. It's Manny Sanders that has the most upside, and I'd throw a Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there as well. Or if you want to even go further, Zach Moss. I'm just looking for guys that could score 2 touchdowns basically in a build that I'm going like completely crazy with. But I wouldn't do that too terribly much, even in large field, and even if I had a ton of lineups, because it's so hard for them to score more than the quarterbacks.
Right. Like it's an outcome, but it's very unlikely. But I do have some dart throws with similar things we just talked about on FanDuel as well. I'm looking at one of Rob.
Hunt for touchdown. Yeah, I was just wanted to reiterate, hunt for touchdowns if that's something you're trying to do.
I'm looking at one of Roth's recent tweets, and he said he broke his own rule: don't bet the weather unless you're certain of the weather. He said there's still some rain around Casey, but not the deluge. Is that the right? I know we were picking on, or Dave Potts was picking on him a couple of weeks ago, or with the deluge word. Did I say that right?
It's
that looked like this
deluge. Deluge. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
what I need you for, man.
It's the French pronunciation. You got to keep your pinky out.
Deluge. It looked like this morning. So it's not the deluge. It looked like this morning. I'm expanding my vocabulary every week with RotoGrinders. So, yeah. So I think, Keith, you said earlier, and he does have it labeled orange on the weather page. Increasingly likely rain in the second half. Could be wet for a majority of the game, but it won't fully ground the high-powered offenses in the game. Listen, Roth is a modest guy, and I live and die with him for MLB. And it's tough being a meteorologist, but he's pretty damn good. So this doesn't really affect my feelings about the pass catchers or the quarterbacks in this game. You have a lean on that, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, I'm much more concerned about wind than I am about rain generally. I mean, there's the things that they have today to help with grip on the football and things like that. It's not an issue. So wind is holding below 10 miles an hour throughout the game, even if it rains a little bit. I mean, both of these quarterbacks and their arm strength, like I'm not concerned about that at all. So I'm basically playing it as if the weather's perfect.
Byron Pringle's sleeper pick, says Phil in the chat. You got any Pringle shares, Keith?
So I think Robinson and Pringle are the two that could really get squeezed by Josh Gordon. I have no idea if that's accurate or not. Is it going to be sneaky and off the board? Absolutely, it's going to be. So if you feel like Pringle still has a role and there's room for him, go for it.
Okay. Thoughts on Zach Moss at captain and some other Moss chatter in the chat. So talk to me about Zach Moss. We talked briefly about this run game, but just kind of reiterate some of your thoughts if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's the touchdown equity for Zach Moss that makes him so attractive. I mean, theoretically, he should be getting the goal line carries. Now, Singletary has scored a little bit more this year than it seemed like he was last year. And so that's kind of the reason that I'm off Zach Moss in this spot. But I think that he is a viable captain. There's certainly a scenario where he scores 2 touchdowns. And if that's the case, no doubt he can be the optimal captain.
I know there's a defense question in the chat. We talked about kickers, defense, like we're talking about some low ownership for defenses. And Patty Mahomes hasn't been perfect this year, and it's not a deluge, but there's still some weather. Man, large field stuff, I don't mind a couple shares. Again, it wouldn't go crazy, but my best my best bet would be neither of them are in the optimal lineup today. What do you think?
I agree with you. I will say they are both extremely cheap. And point scoring is not like the most important thing for fantasy points in with defensive special teams. So there's a route where we could see 50, we could go way over the total, 60 points total in the game. And I mean, if one of the defenses gets a pick six and a couple of sacks with the other team trying to catch up, there's definitely scenarios where it could work out for you. So I don't hate it at all.
In the chat, Eric Lynn said, thoughts on rule excluding Josh Allen with Zach Moss at captain. I wouldn't go crazy on it, but I like it. I'm thinking something more of Zach Moss running back with Mahomes playing catch up. Maybe Buffalo gets out to the early lead kind of game script, and Moss, scores both touchdowns or something like that, or at least one of them. So I think you could do that and then run it back with, Mahomes and Tyreek, and then maybe you have Diggs, and maybe he gets peppered with targets and has one touchdown, 100 yards, but maybe Moss scores twice. So I think that's about right. Eric, how chalky is Zach Moss going to be a captain? He's not going to be very chalky, right, Keith?
Not chalky at all. Let's see.
Gabe Davis sleeper already said in the chat, we're with you. We're on board. We're looking for some value, and we like that he's been on the field. So we're with you on Gabe Davis. Anyway, what did you find out on Zach Moss?
I'm not seeing our slate IQ isn't showing for me. Let me check another spot here. Yeah, in another spot that won't be named, 2.3% in the captain.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. CJ hit the mini max second. Congrats, CJ. Good stuff.
Congrats,
keep it going, man.
It's awesome.
Big hit. You did a lot better than I did today. I mean, it's like that's for sure. Question. Thoughts on Manny Sanders? Says Eric J in the chat. So Manny Sanders, do you rank him above or below Cole Beasley tonight? What's your best guess? Okay.
So in my personal build, I have a slight lean that the Chiefs win the game. It's not a strong lean, and I mean, but you have to figure out a way to build these lineups, right? And I like Cole Beasley in a trailing game script, so I have more Beasley than Sanders. But I certainly would not fault anyone for playing way more Sanders than Beasley. I think Sanders has the much higher upside. And in a Bills winning script, I think Sanders has much more touchdown equity and has much more big play ability. So I like Sanders in that role.
About 8:18 guys, lock in whatever you're working on. If you're listening, I know once in a while I forget to hit submit or save or something like that. So make sure you're hitting that save button. One more question from Eric Lynn in the chat. Can you play 3 pass catchers without the QB in captain tonight? So I think what you're saying is no quarterback captain, but have 3 pass catchers from that team.
I mean, if they're cheap pass catchers, I could see a route to getting away with that through receptions. I certainly would not play Tyreek and Kelsey without their quarterback. So it's price dependent. If we're talking about like Hardman, Gordon, and one of Tyreek or Kelsey, yeah, I could see that working out possibly.
Yeah. I can't believe nobody brought up any Dawson Knox talk tonight. He's just been on the field so much. He's priced up enough.
He's priced up too much where he is really hard to play.
Especially in this game, right? With the ceiling of some of these.
Which probably makes him a great large field tournament play.
Yeah. He's just been on the field a lot. So Davis or Pringle, Keith? Gabe Davis or Byron Pringle?
Gabe Davis for me. I'm really worried about Pringle's role. I think Gordon sees the field enough, and that's what Pringle was doing, is just seeing the field enough.
Yeah, I like Davis too. I mean, we're talking boomer bust guys here, but my lean's on Davis too. Better matchup as well. And he's been on the field. Off the top of my head, more than Pringle, even when he's been dinged up. So like that a lot too. Another big shout out for producer Devin, and man, what do you do on Sundays between main slate and do you sleep between your job duties, Devin? We're rolling right up on 8:20 here.
Week 1 was a nap, yes. Week 2, 3, 4, and 5 have been just football, sweating the lineups, which was a sharp move. Week 1 has been the worst, and it's only gone up from here. So
that puts you at what, 14 straight hours or something like that?
There's I don't count the watching football as work. That's research, but it's all fun getting to sweat my lineups. It makes the day go by. I'll tell you that much.
Awesome stuff. Well, thanks for all
yeah,
you do.
especially for like no baseball. I've been missing baseball. I don't know about you guys. The daily sweat. It's making the weeks go longer. That's for sure.
Yeah, midweek drags on a little bit, but we got NBA coming up soon, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah. We will be busy before we know it. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. 8:20 here. Always thanks for subscribing, tuning in. Thanks for tuning into our podcast and everything. Chief and I are having a blast on Food for Thought. Kind of more of a barbershop type of feel, and we throw some analytics in there too. But try to get Keith on there soon too. So thanks for everything, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. We hope this helped you out quite a bit. Should be an exciting game here. And Keith, stay safe out there. I know you're out in Oklahoma City, so they're having some bad lines rolling through. So get out of here and stay safe. So
yeah.
All right. So for Keith and producer Devin, I'm Justin Carlucci. Good luck, everybody. Make some money.